One of the things we do when we get sober is we begin to look at different parts of our life and what were motivators in our life. And of course, the biggest thing, when I inventory those things, the one thing that comes up consistently is fear. Still today, 30-something years later, still fear. But the difference is I can have fear and not be controlled by fear. And know it's just a part of life and that it's okay and that I'm going to be okay and that we're going to get through this.
Did you at some point in your life have where you had to drink every day?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. And it was early.
Tell a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, I started drinking. It's a little bit funny, right? So I went to a private school that, had a very, large Jewish community inside of it. And so, all of a sudden I learned all about bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs, right? And really what that meant was it was time to drink. Okay, so here I go as a 12 and 13-year-old guy, and I'm hitting these weekends and I'm drinking. But what I noticed was I could go talk to any girl in there, was no problem, or I could do whatever. And unfortunately for me, that didn't stay that way very long. By the time I was 15 years old, I was drinking weekly, multiple times. And by the time I was 16, I was putting beers under my seat in my cars because in the mornings I had a little bit of shake. And I knew that if I could pop a beer and drink it in the morning time, at least I could get myself halfway together. And from that, it got to the point where I was drinking Sprite all the time. And of course, it wasn't really Sprite, but it's the only way in high school. Think about that, in high school that I could drink during the day. So was it daily? Absolutely, And then the interesting thing that I found out was for every alcohol or drug out there, there's another drug that'll help you. And so all of a sudden, I had found it. I'd been put on Ritalin. And so I started finding out that if I ate 5 Ritalin a day instead of 1, I could do anything. And I could continue to drink and be okay. And so I did that. But it got to a point where for me, before I never had a legal drink, as you know, because I got to the point where not only could I not control it anymore, it was causing medical issues. And I mean things such as my skin tone was starting to change. I was getting gray. I mean, I would sweat the speed out in the mornings. I'd had alcohol poisoning before I was 17 years old. So those things, I had been picked up driving down in Florida on US 1 the wrong way, at 2:00 in the morning. Don't remember any of it to this day. And the blackout started happening. And so it got to the point where only by God's grace, I knew that I had a problem and I didn't want to live like this any longer. And so what I prayed, I actually got on my knees and I prayed and I was like, God, if you can do anything, do it. And a friend of mine had been in rehab for 7 months and I went to go pick him up, ironically enough, for a church retreat. And when I picked him up, I cleaned out my car. I was like, no drugs, no alcohol, nothing. And as we got about 10 miles down the road, all of a sudden he looked at me and said, I got something for you. And my heart broke because I knew what it was. And sure enough, he pulled out a bottle of vodka, the big one, the handle. And the problem with that was for the first time in my life, I didn't want to drink, but I had to. I mean, I had no choice. There was no choice in it. And as I began to drink that, I would get so upset. We were out in the woods, and I would throw it out in the woods. And literally 5 minutes later, I was on my hands and knees looking for that bottle and praying, please, God, don't let me do this. And yet I did. And I did. And I did till there was nothing left. And I went into detox that night. And that was the beginning of the road. It was a long road, but it was the beginning. And I had that moment of clarity that we hear about where all of a sudden I realized that I'm probably going to die if I continue to live like this. And there was a little bit of hope in me that said, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I really want to live. And when that happened, I think at that moment, it wasn't like I had this God moment where all of a sudden my life changed, but it started. And I wanted a little more, and I wanted a little more. And I began to work certain principles in my life that began to change and shape my life in such a way that now alcohol and drugs are the farthest thing from even a thought or anything that I'd want to. Today, if I have a problem and I'm hurting, I go to God.